Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk TV. Lively talk about life, church, and church life. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Tenney-Britton, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Kris Tenney-Britton, and we're broadcasting from our studio in Columbia, Missouri, the heartland of America. Say good morning, Kris.
Well, good morning, and welcome to Church Talk TV.
Kris and Bill Tenney-Britton here today, talking to you about chaos from the chaos of our lives, sitting obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we're in our living room because we've had some chaos in our house.
Isn't it interesting the way chaos can just sneak up on you? You could wake up one morning and have chaos. You could walk into your church and discover chaos.
In fact, we did back in 2020, about March of 2020, and chaos started then, but this is a different kind of chaos. And we decided it's a stinky kind of chaos.
Crappy.
We'll talk about that in a minute. The bottom line is that we are talking to you from here because we are experiencing some chaos. We'll talk about that. But we decided to do an unscripted show to talk about the chaos that can happen in your life and in your church, and some of the things that we've learned. And we've known for a while, but we've been able to apply to learn and teach about how you deal with chaos in your life and in your church.
Well, and I will say that the way that we're maneuvering through this chaos at this moment is because of our experience with chaos, right? And in the church especially, I'd say. But how, and in church, in our consulting and our coaching with pastors and churches. Exactly. So here's what happened.
Here's the backstory.
2 weeks ago or so, we woke up to this rather odd smell in our house.
Odd being an odd word for that, because it was unpleasant.
It was unpleasant, but we do have dogs. And we thought, true. Well, maybe it was a dog, but we were not finding any dog messes, and we thought, who knows what it is, what's going on in town. So we get ready, and he goes down to his office, which is downstairs in the bottom floor.
We have an
of our
office
house.
And a studio, and a very nice downstairs, right?
Yeah, right. All but a little bit of our basement is finished. We don't even think of that as our basement, and we have like a full bar entertainment area, a pool table is down there,
sitting space with the television. It's a wonderful entertainment
space. Our
library,
right? I made almost all of our library.
2,000 books out
are there,
now, right?
We're out.
So I go into the office, and it's about yay deep in water. It's about this much above the carpet. And it is, as you say, it's rather unpleasant smell. And so I go to the laundry room, which is the part of the unfinished piece of the basement. And the floor pump, the floor drains have backed up and backed up and backed up. And it's backed up through the studio into my office. And it turns out, when we had the professionals come, actually throughout the whole basement.
So you notice he did say that word professional. We started with...
we started with me just trying to clean it up.
Yeah. How big is that? Like 5 gallons?
Yeah, 5-gallon
wet dry vac.
And I vacuumed
up and down.
Was making no progress.
Yeah, and did everything you thought, but then the next day there was still... It was back. The water was back. And at that point, we knew we needed to call somebody because... we didn't really know how to handle that kind of a
exactly
situation.
Right. Yeah, and so called our insurance agent, and then we called claims, called Roto-Rooter to come and tell us what was going on, and they said, "Oh, well, you have a blockage," and so the Roto-Rooter people came, and then when they saw the mess, they said, "You need to be out of here. We need to bring in restoration services and whatnot because this is not safe." It was I don't know if they call it Class 3. Cat 3. There we are. Cat 3. The spill. Hazmat suits kind of stuff. And they're like, "You're out of here." So they have dismantled our studio. They dismantled my office.
In fact, we're not using even camera. We're using the video on his phone today.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, because we have
probably next week.
Yeah, until we have our studio back. So we have had to do some major adapting, and we thought we'd have the conversation with you about what do you do when there is chaos, and How do you adapt? What do you do to adapt? And so on. Again, this is unscripted because we don't have our teleprompter, we don't have our computer, we don't have
I
any.
have some notes.
She has notes. That's right.
To keep us, because we have some points we want to make here. We could just.
She has points
go
she
on.
wants to make. I just want to talk.
We want
so
to make,
yeah.
Church talk.
Church talk. That's right. Yeah. All right. So
when the crap, I was thinking the crap hits the fan, but it's more like with the crap just never mind.
Floats on the floor.
Right. And just. Now you can't take back that image. We know. You are welcome. Thank you so much, husband. But we do engage chaos, and we engage chaos at the church. I mean, we walk into that, right, with no.
And there's all sorts of different chaoses you can walk into.
Yeah.
You know, there's a sewage spill. There's what happens if weather hits or a flood in your area hits and your church is closed down or is uninhabitable. What happens if you come in one Sunday and you found out your senior pastor has quit?
Or died.
Or died.
I know a secretary, and they couldn't find the senior pastor, and she's looking for him, and the last place she hadn't looked for him was in the restroom, and that's where he was. He had died. I mean, what do you do with that?
Right. And, you know, and so there's opportunities, and you will experience some, of chaos on a regular basis. And we all experienced it again back in March of 2020 when COVID hit and suddenly we can't worship in our buildings.
Right. And chaos in the church, though, isn't just about what's happening in the church. It can be about what's happening in our own private, personal life. That we can bring, chaos can hit us in the face, but we also can carry it in with us.
Right.
So,
you've probably been around people who brought their chaos to church with them and created chaos within your congregation.
Goodness, and those are the people we pray for God to remove in one way or another. A lot of times, that's another episode.
Well, for those who bring different kind of chaos, they bring. Some bring chaos because of
Right.
I think of a friend of ours who had some mental issues, and she came to church and swore that there was a gas leak.
Oh, mercy!
And literally in the middle of worship service, cleared the sanctuary because she could smell a gas leak. There wasn't a gas leak, but it created chaos. And so we want to talk about some of the ways in which we can deal, should deal, the tools that we have for dealing with chaos. So,
or facing it. Right. I mean, sometimes we can't deal with it. When I think about dealing, I think about playing with it, like dealing a deck of cards, with handling it, which it's not always handable.
But we have to deal with it one way or the other. You can't just ignore it. It's not going away. Right.
We have to address it.
So when I talk about dealing with it, I don't mean this as solving it. You have to work through it.
Work with it, if in spite of it.
The show must go on, and now that may not be worship. Worship may not be able to go on, or your worship service may not be able to go on, as we did in March. Or you may not be able to use your building, use your office, as the case may be. But the show, the evangelism, the discipleship, the work of the church, the ministry of the church must go on. It doesn't get to take a break, and that includes even those of us who are getting older. You don't get to retire. The show must go on. The work must go on, regardless of the chaos.
Right. Okay. So now I lost my train of thought. Give me a minute.
That was
just
intentional.
Bear with me for a second. That's why he had to say that. Yeah. Oh, okay. And a lot of us have, I don't know, what do you call them? Like emergency plans. Like if this happens, we know this is what we need. Contingency plans.
Right. In fact, I just there's an article in Net Results Magazine.
Oh.
This issue, which is the November-December issue of 2021, that you'll want to look at because Church Mutual, they write a regular column for us, and they talk about making contingency plans in that issue. A fabulous article about how a church can make contingency plans for this very issue of what happens when chaos hits.
I love that.
Yeah.
So there you are. Okay. Well, the other piece is there are a lot of circumstances, situations that we can't prepare for, that we would never think of happening. So that's why I made some notes about what do we do with those? How do we handle that? The first piece is, you've heard me say this over and over again, sometimes all we can say is it is what it is. And it's easy to blame. It's easy to look at, why did this happen? And that may be, that can be valid depending on that situation or whatever. But often when we ask, why did this happen? It's usually to find who was responsible, right? That blame piece.
We immediately look to, and I'm probably going to totally forget this, Wuhan or whatever in China when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to find, because it's obviously that the Chinese did this, and it was like, it doesn't make any difference where it originated from. We have to deal with it. Now, it's important for science to do so.
Right, to know.
Yeah. And so they can, if there's something to deal with. But by and large, you just got to deal with what's there in front of you. And, why did the Mississippi flood and the Hannibal Church get, the basement was filled up? Well, dealing with the cause is kind of pointless. What you need to deal with is we have a flooded sanctuary or a flooded basement or whatever. What are we going to do now? And we can deal with the cause later if it's within our purview to do so. Not everything is.
Right. And I can hear some of us thinking out there, some of them thinking that, well, it's really important to know the cause. But we're talking about in the immediate now. You have to say it is what it is. This is where we are. And you've got to gather, you're going to have to keep herding people in and around you, because they're going to be the people that are, why did this happen, right? And then they're going to be out there, this is what we have to do to fix it. And then there'll be somebody else who has an opinion to how they're going to fix it. So we are all going to start with, it is what it is. And I think that this is when things like breathing exercises and doing this with people, if you're in sanctuary, in classes, wherever it is that you're moving around, and if you're not in the sanctuary or not in your building, then on Zoom or however whatever your platform is, your video platform, and just say, really, breathe with me. Breathe in, 4 and out.
And let me get past our breathing for a moment, because I agree with you, but we're not breathing here. But
I was trying to get them to breathe.
Yeah, I understand. But we have 20 minutes total. So one of the realities of what you're saying is that yes, when the chaos is there'll be people who are going to want to go this direction, that direction, this direction, that direction, and that becomes a huge distraction from the ministry of the church. And the focus must be your mission. How do we continue pursuing our mission, even within the chaos or in spite of the chaos, or as we work through the chaos? And one of the ways of doing that is to designate a team who will be the crisis management team. They're the ones who make decisions. They're the ones who are going to tell the congregation, essentially, this is the direction we're going to handle, to deal with, to work through, to mitigate this crisis, so that we can get back on track. I know that the congregation that we attend, that when COVID hit, the first thing it did was they put a back to church team, and that team, and we didn't go back to church for over a year. And so most of their work wasn't about going back to church. It was, how do we deal with this? What are we doing with worship? What are we doing with discipleship? And that team became the funnel through which the decisions were made. We still had the board and all that, but they were the immediate crisis handling team, the project team, if you will. And it's helpful to have that kind of a team, to put that kind of team together quickly, and perhaps even having that team set up prior to any chaos, so you know who you're going to turn to, so that when there's an incident, that you have an incident response team who is there and able to make good, solid decisions.
So you're making me think about, it's kind of like an emergency management team.
Oh, that's right? I couldn't come up with a name. That's great.
Yeah,
emergency management team.
Yeah, because it's not just about emergency response. You want people who that people are seeing, whom they can trust and whatnot.
Right.
And because again, we've seen this in so many different situations, and perhaps you've experienced yourself. It's common that you've got people with competing ideas, right? Different ideas, and some voices are louder than others. And this, I call them guerrillas. There are guerrillas who wait for something to be upset with you in conflict intervention. So you just think of guerrillas. Anyways.
And they leap out of the tree.
And they leap out of trees at you, right? And they wait wait for an opportune moment. And a crisis, a chaotic situation can be one of those moments. Oh, those are the key moments, quite honestly.
Right.
All right. So you want this emergency management team ready to be mobilized. And you may have to add a person to that, and that's somebody who knows about what that is. Like, okay, so this is what I'm thinking about. So you said we called Roto-Rooter.
Right.
So my phone is ringing, if y'all can hear that, and we are literally in our living room.
Not in our soundproof studio.
No, it's back in the bedroom. So we're just being real here. Right. Anyways, we called Roto-Rooter, and we know nothing about sewage cleanup or anything like that. And Roto-Rooter has a project manager.
Right.
You know, they had a site. I don't know, like a supervisor or something, a crew chief maybe. But Matt has been our go-to person, and he is walking us through all of this. And our claims adjuster was asking us questions, and my response is like, I have no idea even what you're asking or talking about, but Matt does, and Matt is able to answer those questions and explain things to us,
So you'll need your Matt.
You need a Matt.
You need Matt.
M-A-T-T.
Yeah, not Max.
Well, I thought you were going to say Matt. I did say Matt, but I thought you were talking about like laying on the floor mat.
No.
Although those are helpful in these situations.
It really is. having had them jackhammer an inch out of the concrete because the sewage ran under the concrete in our basement. Yeah, it really
We're going to
is.
show you pictures. We have 2. What are those called? They're not pods.
They're called pods.
Okay. Containers, metal containers. One in our driveway and one in the street, which I know our neighbors love us. One in the street with almost everything that was downstairs.
All our books, and here's the deal: is that they had people for 2 days going up and boxing our books and taking them. Anyway, all that to say, going back to the project management.
Go for it.
In your emergency management team, you need to have your boss, but as you point out, you may need to bring someone in who's a specialist. In our case, during COVID, we brought in a nurse who, a public health nurse who was a member of the church, who we brought in to actually be one of the leads of the team because she could make the best decisions for the health and the safety and well-being of our congregation.
But the management team had to, you were all part of that decision.
That's right.
It didn't all fall on her.
She brought her expertise, and the team made the decisions. But they were largely, the decisions were made based on the information that we knew from our congregation and from our nurse. So whatever, you bring in someone for whatever crisis you're in to spearhead and bring advice to the team.
Right. And you want to make sure that you follow all of your congregation's ways of working, right? You mentioned the board.
Stay within your organizational structure for decision making.
Stay there, right? And so you're able. They won't make just decisions. Again, I want to keep doing this back and forth with Matt. And in Roto-Rooter, Matt's not making all those decisions. He's got accountability with our claims adjuster, and he has accountability with us. They didn't start taking up 2 feet or whatever the bottom of our walls until he talked to us and said, "Hey, this is what we need to do."
He's brought in a general contractor who will run for the reconstruction that's to come.
Right, yeah, exactly. and a contractor who knows this in particular, who is experienced in restoration type of work.
All right. So it is what it is, and bring in an emergency management team.
A management team and make a plan and follow your plan, but don't get too married to your plan because sometimes plans have to be adjusted.
And in our case, again, they had done all the sop-up work and they thought they were well done, and then they brought in some equipment and discovered that there was water under the concrete, sewage water, which they cannot leave because it's unsafe. And so they literally had to bring in jackhammers. They had no intention of doing that. We had no intention of I don't want to say letting them do that. It wasn't in our plan either. Yeah, listening to it for 2 days as they jackhammered the concrete out of our basement. But the deal is that you have to allow for various contingencies, and you have to be flexible. I want to go back to your conversations stay within your congregation's polity and the way we make decisions, that there are times when you need your leadership team, your board may need to defer and say, you can make the decisions.
Yes,
that
totally agree.
That we're putting it in your hands, and we will rubber stamp what you do. Now, you can't do that if you don't have people you trust. Right. If you don't trust the people on the team,
they shouldn't be on there.
That's right, exactly right. And that's a beautiful point, because so often we put people on teams, and we sometimes put them on our teams because we think that if we do that, they'll get more active. Maybe they weren't very active, and now we'll get more active. Or I had a pastor who I wanted to just slap 3 or 4 times, maybe not, but maybe, who said, I need to have someone who is, I don't want to say cantankerous, but who will not agree with me, who is antagonistic towards me, because I want them on the team so that I don't just have yes people. And I looked at him and said, you're going to get what you deserve. And he did. That congregation went nowhere. And because you want people who will, you can trust. And if you can't trust them, then don't put them on the team.
Well, and the board needs to be that way as well.
Right. Yeah, well, anyone in leadership, you ought to be able to trust.
And another part of that is that you shouldn't have to keep going back to the board for permission. Boards are supposed to be, and this is a whole lot of other episodes. Yeah, that your board is a policy making,
not a management board.
Not a management board. Right. That's why you have an emergency management team.
Why you have staff. Why you have ministry teams, and they run the ministry. The board does the policy. Okay, moving on real quick, because we're almost out of time.
So I have a couple more points here, but I do want to say too about not getting married to your plan. I asked him. He came to me at 9 a.m. this morning when Roto-Rooter is coming, and it was wonderful. You put up something on their page and asked for an appointment. This is the problem. Within just a few minutes, somebody called you, and then they said, we'll be there. We'll have someone there for you in half an hour. And within about 30 minutes or so, that person was there. And shortly after that, he comes up. It's about 9 a.m. and he says to me, you need to come down and decide what it is you can't live with. We can't live with.
Without.
Yeah, live without. Okay. For the next.
Can't live with the smell. That's what we can't live with.
Yeah, take that out. For the next month. And I said, what? And so he talks more slowly and a little louder to tell me they have to take everything out of here and we have to decide what it is that we need.
Tripods for one.
Yeah, like what are we talking about? But okay, but you mentioned a month, right? So I start thinking, oh my gosh, Thanksgiving. Is Thanksgiving a month away? Wait, we have people. Okay, could be Thanksgiving. Well, today, now I'm saying to him, when do you think that contractor might be here? How long do you think it might be? So, my plan started out as, okay, it'll be a month. But I also started thinking, wow, that might be way past Thanksgiving.
Right.
Who knows? So don't be married to your plan and don't get so married uptight about it. And here's another piece of what I want to say with this. And that is, you have to have a place to vent your emotions, your frustrations, your fears. Those of us that are in leadership, I believe in transparency, but we still are the minister, the leader. People aren't there to take care of us, right? We're there to assess, to mitigate. But a lot of us minister types, right? We act as pastors, and we want to take care of our people, but we also so often, I watch this over and over again, where the people are taking care of the pastor. So again, that's another episode or two about where you find your support, but it is not amongst your congregants. And you've got to find some place and some people. Hopefully you're building friendships, or you have a therapist outside of the church, and you've got to have that place to go so you're not beaten up on your spouse. Not that my spouse beats up on me.
Or vice versa.
I try really hard not to do it.
Another thing when it comes to just what you said is also when you're in the midst of crisis, especially if you're the pastor, if you're the leader, it is not the time to think out loud. Because if you think out loud, you may say things that you may not regret, or you may come to regret, but you don't. Maybe they were a bad idea that just need to be discarded. But sometimes your bad ideas become the ideas that some people run with, or they will misconstrue it and so on. So if you need to talk or think out loud, make sure you're with someone where they know you think out loud and they know that what you say is not the law. Don't stand there and pontificate off the cuff in the larger group.
Right. I like that, pontificate. And as you were saying, because so many times we're talking out, thinking out here, or with our management group even, you need to continually say, I'm just thinking, walk with me here. What are you thinking? I'm not sure. What do you think? Get that feedback. Don't sit there and don't let them not think, right? Don't let them not give input and back and forth with you. One of my fears is too, when we think out loud, people, it's that getting stuck to a plan. It's also like, oh, okay, this is what he said, and then when we have to play out, they don't understand, right, doing that.
So be careful where it's down. We are totally out of time. You get one last thing. I was saying, get your last thing.
Okay, my last thing is, don't you become the chaos. Again, that's why you've got to go out and mitigate your own chaos, your own frustration, your own emotions, so that when you walk in that church, you can walk in straight up, or maybe not the church, wherever, whatever it is, you can walk in, shoulders back, head straight up. You're having trouble doing that, go into a bathroom stall and just breathe and go like this. It makes your shoulders go up. But you stand, you be that point person. I go to a 12-step meeting and we say, bring your message to the meeting and leave your mess with your sponsor.
And which is good advice. One last little piece of advice to build on that, and that is that don't forget that you're not in this alone.
Right.
That you've got the creator of the universe who's looking at this little crisis that you're having, no matter how big it seems to you, that in the scope of eternity, in the scope of your life, in the scope of this week probably, it's not the biggest thing you have to deal with. Take a breath, remember who you are and whose you are, and walk forward with the confidence that in the end, it's going to be good. And if it feels like the end and it's not good, it's not the end.
This is I'm thinking people, you may feel like you're lonely, you're in this, who do I talk to, where can I go? That's what Effective Church Group is all about, right? And so you can go up, you know the pages and everything else, but we offer coaching and we do consulting, and we can be there to walk with you. So where would they go to get that information?
EffectiveChurch.com, or shoot us an email. Hey, we are out of time, and I just want to point out that the newest issue of Net Results is out. The November-December 2021 issue is on change management, and it deals with chaos and craziness of leadership sometimes. Great issue.
Great writers.
Yeah, and great writers, people who are in the trenches. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you. Have a
great week.